position. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Heath Cummings, and we are talking about the tight end position. Heath's a little upset that we're not talking about Anthony Richardson, who was named the Colts starting quarterback. Heath, 15 seconds to tell us where you're ranking Anthony Richardson.
He is a top 10 quarterback, and every quarterback who's ever had 150 carries has been a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and he should be expected to have 150 carries. He might be a top 5 quarterback if he can throw even a little bit.
I strongly disagree. He's QB 11 for me. All right, let's move on to the topic of our podcast today, which is biggest questions for the tight end position. And I did a little exercise on the FFT newsletter last week with my tight end preview, just trying to make the case for a tight end who's not Travis Kelce to be the number one. Is there actually any case for anyone but Travis Kelce as the number one tight end?
The case is centered around Travis Kelce and not anybody else. The case would be that Father Time is undefeated. And while Kelce showed zero signs of being worse last year because of his age, he's 34 years old or will be before the season's over. And every other tight end at some point has become too old to play tight end well in the NFL. And it's going to happen to him at some point. Maybe it will be this year.
Yeah, it's always like the example, I guess, in football would be like Jerry Rice, where Jerry Rice, we did see Jerry Rice fall off. He was like 40 when he finally stopped having 1,000-yard seasons. I'm not saying Travis Kelce will do the same thing, but given the offense, given the situation, given his baseline talent level, he is the number one tight end. I did make the case for, I think it was 9 tight ends who could finish in the Travis Kelce tier. And I think there are probably 5 of them who are pretty obvious: Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts. Actually, that looks like 7: Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller, and George Kittle. I think any of those guys, if they finished as the number 2 tight end, I don't think you'd be particularly surprised. Any of those guys could be the equivalent of, say, a top 20 wide receiver. But a couple of guys that I added to that group. Is this the year rookie tight ends actually matter in fantasy? Historically, rookie tight ends have taken a very long time to get going, and it makes sense. They're effectively learning 2 positions at the NFL level. But Dalton Kincaid doesn't really sound like he's playing a lot of tight end. Doesn't really sound like the Bills are going to be asking him to do much blocking. He did line up in line. He's the top tight end taken in the NFL draft. Presumably the top rookie tight end for you, right?
He is. The only thing I'm more skeptical of than rookie tight ends is players who are not actually going to play their position, but they're going to be so much better because of it. Running backs who are going to play the slot and tight ends who are going to play the slot. Like, it seems like those are the guys that as fantasy analysts, we usually overvalue compared to how coaches value them. But I think if you think that Pat Freiermuth and Kyle Pitts mattered 2 years ago, then there is a chance that 2 of these guys, and I would suggest Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta are the 2 most likely, could matter in that vein. I would expect Kincaid is certainly going to have some weeks where he matters from a fantasy perspective. I have not found myself drafting him still very often. I'd much rather take a chance on a David Njoku in round 9 or 10. I'd much rather take a chance on a Pat Freiermuth in round 8 or 9. But I think Kincaid is definitely the most likely. Laporta in deeper tight end premium leagues, I think especially, is interesting.
Yeah, I'll also throw out Luke Musgrave, who kind of has a similar case as Sam Laporta, and it's just he's locked in as the starter already. It looks like from how the Packers used Luke Musgrave, their second-round pick in the preseason, it looks like they're just going to throw all the young guys out there, and he's one of them. He's going to have a big role. I think they're all ranked 15th or later. I think Dalton Kincaid is 14 for me, but you're not drafting them as a starter. But I do like, if I'm not taking one of the high-end options, I do like grabbing like Dalton Schultz or someone, or Tyler Higbee, who has a relatively high floor and should at least get me something every week, and pairing them with a Laporta or a Dalton Kincaid with one of my last picks. Although Kincaid's price is rising in drafts. He's up inside the top 11 rounds in ADP over the last 2 weeks. One of the biggest risers over the last 2 weeks. And just keep it kind of related. Who's your favorite late round tight end?
I'll go very late. Doesn't even get drafted in a lot of our drafts, but in deeper drafts, and really I think should get drafted in regular drafts, Irv Smith.
Sure.
The post-hype sleeper now paired up with Joe Burrow. He's going to fill that Hayden Hurst role, and Hurst saw about 5 targets per game last year. If you get 5 targets per game from Joe Burrow, there's a chance you have one of those weird seasons where you have a 7% touchdown rate, 700 yards, 8 touchdowns, and you finish as a top 10 tight end. I like Irv Smith, and I think let's give him a chance to start the season. Pair him with one of those rookies.
I like another similar case, Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys. Just Cowboys throw the ball to their tight ends a ton. Dak Prescott historically has. He's the clear starter for the Cowboys right now over rookie Luke Schoonmaker, whose training camp got off to a delay. And then let's throw Zach Ertz out there. Yeah. He's a boring option, but he's been very productive since he got to Arizona. They've thrown the ball to him a lot. He was activated from the PUP list the other day, so he's going to be back from that torn ACL. Couple of late round guys, probably pretty boring, but could be useful for fantasy this season. If you're looking at the late round tight ends, that's usually what you're hoping for. So that's going to do it for FFT and 5. We'll see you tomorrow.